So thank you again, everybody, for joining us this morning and for this, as I said, this very informative session with our colleagues from the Property Valuation Services Corporation. I'll be introducing our guest speaker in a moment. The Tourism Industry Association of Nova Scotia recognizes that this is a very important topic for many in our industry. And while we are working towards extending the season, building out our shoulder seasons, etc., and looking towards building towards a strong 365 industry, we do rely on programs like this to support us in getting to that point, especially for our smaller and mid-sized operations, which make up a large part of our industry here. Before we begin the formal session, I'd like to also acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people today. These lands are governed by the treaties of peace and friendship, and we recognize at TIANS that we are all treaty people. So welcome to you all on behalf of that. And I'd like to introduce Laura MacLean, who's our speaker today. She's the Assistant Director of Operations with the Property Valuation Services Corporation in Nova Scotia. PVSC provides property assessment services and information for more than 650,000 properties across Nova Scotia. That includes 49 municipalities, each of which you operate within, supporting municipal governments and property owners with valuation services that are equitable and transparent. And Laura has over 20 years of experience in this. She has deep expertise in the commercial valuation space and has been widely recognized, including with a number of awards in her work. So we are really pleased to have PVSC continuing to develop a partnership with us in terms of sharing information about this program, and also as we discuss opportunities to perhaps look outside of the scope of this program and see how we can support piloting other projects that perhaps could support growth beyond your traditional season that still recognize the challenges and limitations of the tax base itself, and building something that we can all be proud of and happy with in terms of that work. Now, we do have a chat set up in this session. Even though it's a webinar, we also have it set up that people will be able to, during the Q&A afterwards, take their mics off and ask their questions directly. But I will also do my best to support, following Laura's formal remarks, to support any of the conversation and chat that may come up within the digital space itself. In the meantime, I'm going to take myself off screen and I'll hand over to Laura to walk us through the next 15 minutes or so of slides and presentation, and then we'll have time for a bit of a Q&A. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us, and I'll come back on afterwards.
Thank you, Lisa, and good morning, everyone. I'm just going to try sharing my presentation, and you can just let me know if that shows up appropriately.
Just saying double click to enter full screen mode. There you go. Now we're getting it.
Okay.
We're seeing your notes as well. So just move into your presenter mode and you'll be all set.
Okay, excellent. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join me. I know this is a busy season for many of the folks on the phone running your seasonal tourist business. For those of you who haven't met me, and as Lisa said, I'm Laura MacLean, and I work with Property Valuation Services Corporation as an assistant director. Today, I'd like to just walk you through the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation program, and hopefully what comes across as plain language. So essentially trying to answer the questions, what is this program, who qualifies, and how you apply. So whether you run a seasonal bed and breakfast or a large campground, this session is meant for you today. So here's the agenda. I'm just going to give a quick overview about Property Valuation Services Corporation, or PVSC, as we fondly like to shorten our long name to. And that will just include at a high level what we do and what we don't do, as well as the program, the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation Program. And this is actually something we administer on behalf of the province of Nova Scotia. I just want to make that distinction. So it's not PVSC's program, it's actually something we administer on behalf of the province. And at the end of the presentation, we'll go over some contact information, and then there'll be a Q&A session. Okay, so here's just a little bit of information about PVSC. We were created under the Property Valuation Service Corporation Act, and we are responsible for assessing all the property in Nova Scotia under the Nova Scotia Assessment Act. So similar to what was mentioned in the introduction, that is delivering an assessment role to 49 municipalities, and that consists of over 650,000 assessment notices for individual property owners within the province as well. We are municipally funded and a not-for-profit organization, and we are governed by a board of directors. There are approximately 135 employees working in 60 communities across Nova Scotia as well. So here's just a really high-level overview of what we do and we don't do. And this is just so there's no confusion about our role as an organization. So we, as an organization, PVSC assesses the value of your property, but we don't set tax rates. We don't collect taxes. We don't create tax policy or provide any tax relief. And we also do not determine land ownership. So essentially, we deliver the assessment role, as mentioned, to the 49 municipalities. And we deliver 650,000 assessment notices each year in January. And in addition to administering the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation program on behalf of the Nova Scotia government, we also administer another program called the Capped Assessment Program. I'm not here to talk about that today, but if any of you own a property, a residential property, you may be familiar with that one as well. So just in terms of definitions, you may be wondering what qualifies as a seasonal tourist business, and just in regards to the program being administered here. So what the definition is a restaurant, roofed accommodation, or camping establishment, and it must be closed for at least 4 months during the same taxation year. However, those 4 months of closure do not have to be consecutive. So it can be at different times throughout the year. It just has to total 4 months. So what happens when you qualify and you fill out your application is you're entitled to receive a tax reduction of 25% specific to the commercial component of the business that is designated as the seasonal tourist business.
Laura, can I ask you to
Yes.
pause for one moment? I'm just
Sure.
hearing from one of our participants that they're actually not seeing your screen. I can see your screen, but for some reason,
Oh,
we're hearing from Joanne Latimer, who's one of our participants, that she's just seeing green on the screen. Is it
okay.
possible for you to reset perhaps? And
Sure.
uh,
Absolutely. Yeah,
I'm
sorry
wondering,
about that.
it looks like you're in a presenter mode, so that may be affecting it. If you can go right into the slide itself.
Sure. Yep, I can do that.
Apologies for that, everyone, and thank you. Joanne's also noting that she's getting a bit of feedback. I'm not sure if that may be from other people, perhaps taking their mics off, but let's just keep our mics off for now so that we can reduce noise for Laura's presentation. Thanks.
Okay, I'm just going to double check. Can everyone see the screen?
I can see it. I'm just waiting to see if some of our participants could comment in the chat, perhaps that they can see that. I'm getting some thumbs up
Oh,
now.
perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much, everyone. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Laura.
Okay, perfect. I'll just go back to where I was, and then if you'd like, I can always review some of the other content at the end. Where we were just discussing what the designation entitles, and participants receive a tax reduction of 25% specific to the commercial component of their business that is designated as a seasonal tourist business. Just a note, any premises or part of the premises licensed under the Liquor Control Act, such as a cabaret, tavern, beverage room, or lounge, are not eligible for the designation. So I'll give you an example. If you're operating as a restaurant during the day, but convert to a lounge or nightclub at any time, such as in the evening, that would not be eligible. So I just wanted to make clear that one example. So just to reiterate again, who is eligible, and we did talk about this a couple of slides ago, but it's a restaurant, roofed accommodation, or camping establishment. Those are the main three types of businesses. And you must be closed for at least 4 months in the same taxation year. And that taxation year is April 1st through March 31st. And again, that does not have to be 4 consecutive months. It just has to be 4 total months throughout that taxation year. It must be operated by the assessed property owner or their relative, and where relative is defined as a parent, sibling, child, grandchild, or spouse. And in addition to that, it must be managed and at least 50% owned by the property owner or their relative. So in the case of a corporation, at least 50% of the voting shares must be held by the property owner or their relative. So those are the criteria that determines who is eligible. So how do I apply? So this is a very important piece of information, particularly the application deadline, which is September 1st. So that's coming up in just a couple of short weeks. So how do you apply? So the best way is to fill out and sign the application form. We did send out a letter and application form via email to businesses who were designated last year or who were applied and were not eligible. So an example of that would be sometimes we get late applications, but we do not have any jurisdiction to grant the designation if the application is received after the deadline of September 1st. However, we do keep those applications so we can send the reminder out to them the following year so they don't miss the deadline. So one of the things I mentioned that we emailed them this year, we're trying to go a little more paperless in terms of our mail out processes. So because the application requests an email contact information, we were able to use that information to send the reminder this year in the courtesy letter. So please, if you may, when you're doing your applications this year, ensure a valid email address is on your file so that you can receive future program information. We are going to continue with the email method going forward. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your application to please include a valid email address. So as I mentioned, the deadline is out of our hands because it's a provincial program. And so it's very important that your application is in before September 1st. It can be emailed into us. Our email is on the screen here. It's inquiry@pvsc.ca. And again, we don't have any jurisdiction to extend the deadline or accept late applications, unfortunately, for any circumstance. So please keep that in mind. So where can you get an application form? So if you weren't able to get a form through our email distribution a couple of weeks back, you can actually find the same form on our website, which is pvsc.ca. And when you go to, you'll see the screen here, it says PVSC Forms and Guides. That's actually a tab on our website. And you're able to just find, second from the bottom there, application for Seasonal Tourist Business Designation. And you just click there and you can download the PDF form. Once you do that, you can fill it out as you normally would and send it back to us at inquiry@pvsc.ca. And all of that information is on the PDF form. So you don't have to memorize the email to return it, but I'm just repeating it so it's in your mind. So you may be wondering, if you've applied, how do you know that you've been approved? So if you meet all the criteria we discussed earlier, your property will be designated as a seasonal tourist business, and it will be noted on your property assessment notice. So come January, coming up in 2027, if you can believe that, you'll get your assessment notice, and you'll see there's a little line on the bottom here, and it's highlighted in the orange box. but essentially your notice will have all of your relevant assessment information, and it will also state this property is designated as a seasonal tourist business. The portion of the commercial taxable value that is identified as being occupied by a seasonal tourist business is, and then they'll have a dollar amount. This example is $361,900, but that may be different depending on the property. And in this case, that represents 100% of the total commercial taxable property. That it may not always be the case, but you'll have a breakdown of what that represents on your notice. If you are denied, if your application is denied, PVSC will contact you. Typically, it's for two reasons. One is the late application I mentioned earlier. So we don't have any ability to grant it. Even if it's September 2nd, we just aren't able to do that. As well, other reasons is if you don't meet the eligibility criteria that we talked about earlier. So those are sort of the two main reasons an application is denied, but we will let you know so that you have that information. So just lastly, before we get into the questions, here's the contact information. And again, it's on our website, it's on the form. So you don't have to memorize it per se, but we do have our email up at the top, as well as our 1-800 phone number if you have any questions. We do also accept fax and regular mail with the information there, and our website. So our website's usually the best place to go for additional information. There's a lot on there. So I would encourage you to visit the website if you have a moment. So thank you. That's really all the information I had, but I'm happy to take any questions or to go back through any of the slides that might have been missed sort of at the beginning there with the screen sharing.
Super, thanks very much. And I'm just going to come on and before I jump into some of the specific questions, I do want to ask the participants if they would like Laura to revisit any of those earlier slides that outline some of the prior information early on, or if we want to jump right into some conversation. Any feedback in the chat here? And David, I've got your question noted, and that is one that we will dive into as well. Absolutely. Super. Okay. Just looking here to see one more. Perfect. And I've got something in there's a good question here from Avila. Avila is asking, would a winery be with a short-term rental, an accommodation on the property be considered eligible? So this would be a winery operation with a short-term rental accommodation that otherwise, from an accommodation perspective, would fit those parameters in terms of the seasonal tourism business.
So there's really only 3 eligible types of businesses. So I think this will answer the question, but we can have a discussion if not. So if it's a restaurant, a roofed accommodation, or a camping establishment. Okay. So a winery in and of itself may not qualify unless it is also one of these other items. And then we would have to look at that as well. The other piece of information is around the Liquor Control Act licensing. So around the cabaret, tavern, beverage room type of examples. Sure. So if it was within that stream, it likely would not qualify.
Okay. And I've just invited Avila to take her mic, take her mute off. Avila, would you like to respond or clarify any of that?
Yes, please. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay. So ours is a winery that's open seasonally because the vineyard goes dormant and nobody comes our way after middle of October. We also have, as a separate, on the same premises, a short-term rental, which we call the farmhouse. That too, we had hoped to keep it open all year round, but there just isn't enough people driving our way. Mm-hmm. after October or after the first snowfall. So we are thinking, well, maybe we shouldn't be opened after January 1st, and reopen again, in for the short-term rental sometime in April when the weather gets better. Would that work?
Well, it has to be specific to the commercial component of the business.
Okay.
So I don't have the property information in front of me.
Yeah.
But what I would encourage you to do is take a look at the application. And if you think you'd like to apply, feel
Yeah.
free to send it in before the deadline, and then we would take a look and see if it was eligible.
Okay. And any reduction in the taxes would be for 2027's taxes, not the tax bill I have to pay in 2026. Is that right?
That's correct. So if you're eligible, it shows up on your in this case, your 2027 assessment notice.
Yep.
And then it would be for anything in that cycle between April 1st and March 31st, starting in 2027. Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks. Thank you, Avila, for asking that question. I'm going to move over to the chat for a question, and then we'll come back into the Q&A for, I see one there as well from Jacqueline. David DeYoung is on the line. Hi, David and Anne-Marie, who operate Seawind Landing Country Inn in Charloes Cove, down on the Eastern Shore. And just rolling up here to make sure I get the framing of it right, which the question is really around the fact that, Laura, as you may already be aware, we have a new tourism strategic plan for the province. And one of the elements of this is really focused on building out to, a year-round 365 industry, but also recognizing that these things take time, and it's not a matter of being able to say, yes, I'm going to move from being a seasonal based business to a year-round business overnight. One of the things that TIANS has done is prepared a proposal for a pilot that would allow for accessing the seasonal business designation at the same time as permitting a business to do a gradual buildup of extending their time of opening. So they could still access the benefit of the program without being penalized for it, but over a period of time, over a period of years, not a period of 1 or 2 years, for example. So David's question really relates to, this plan has the year-round tourism goal. It's going to take some time to build up, and giving up that seasonal designation right now doesn't really offset any of the incremental revenue impacts in the short term. So the question here is, could there be any discussion or progress in altering the designation calculation parameters in order to try to support this? So is the specific calculation that PVSC is currently using, for example, is it something that's set in stone, or is that ever revisited in terms of the parameters for it? And David, I will answer on the TIANS front to say that we have continued to go back to the minister and the government and ask for advancement on that particular pilot, and we will absolutely keep the industry posted as it advances. But Laura, in terms of the calculations that are done from your end, any thoughts on any other kind of metrics or approaches that could be taken for that, or do you have that flexibility to review it and make suggestions yourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for the additional context.
And also, sorry, David, I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you as well. If you want to come off mute and ask anything or add to that, if I've framed it wrong, then please jump in and let us know.
Did you want me to go ahead, Lisa?
Yeah, please go ahead, Laura.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so PVSC administers the program on behalf of the province. So any change in direction or in eligibility criteria would have to come from the province for us to change any of our internal review considerations. So at this point, we are operating based on the criteria we've just been discussing here. So the 4-month closure, which I think probably is what you're referring to if you were open longer. So unfortunately, we're still operating within what the current program is as it's been laid out for us to administer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Lisa. You did frame it right. It's Anne-Marie, not Dave.
Hi, Anne-Marie. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it would be great though if it could, because I mean the dollar savings you get versus the pittance of revenue that would be there in the off season right now. I mean, you're never going to give it up, you
Yeah,
know. So
it's going to have to be something over as we suggested, a graduated time frame that also will
yeah,
have to have other elements from the strategic plan, I think, leveraged in order to, meaningfully advance that piece of things. That
yeah.
can't be a program on its own that's going to necessarily make all of the difference, obviously.
Oh God,
So
oh God,
yeah,
no.
for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So
yeah.
some other things are going to have to be happening in alignment with that, with other policy alignment discussion, some of the infrastructure movement and advancement and so on as well. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. All
sure.
right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. Popping back over into the Q&A, I see Jacqueline Giroir has joined us. Bonjour, Jacqueline. And she is asking about French-speaking clients having the option to fill in the form and or speak to a French-speaking representative from PVSC. Laura?
Oh, that's a great question. I could take that away. I don't know at my fingertips what the options are there, but I'm sure we can find a way to accommodate that.
Mm-hmm.
Would I just get in touch with you, Lisa, in terms of moving that one forward?
I think that's a great idea. If everybody's comfortable with that, we can come back out to the group collectively and advise them of anybody seeking French support. And I would also say that might be something to think about once you get the information, Laura, maybe just add it to the form or online itself to PVSC site so that our French-speaking operators and contacts have a comfort level with knowing they can reach out and be served in the language of their choice. Sure. Anything else you wanted to ask there, Jacqueline, or? Okay. Let's see. Joanne is on the call, Joanne Latimer. And Joanne has asked a question with regards to museums. So this sounds like it's going to fall outside the initial scope, but maybe you can just speak to that in terms of the seasonal tourist business. And has there ever been conversation around museums being included in that?
Okay, another great question. So I think it's very similar to the one before around the criteria. So again, we take the criteria from the provincial program as it's laid out, which is of course restaurant, grouped accommodation, and camping establishment. So as far as I know, that would not include museums at this time, but perhaps that is another discussion point for future consideration. I'm not sure. We really just administer
Mhm.
it based on the
Mhm.
criteria that is currently established.
Mhm. It would seem that most of these, categories would fit into what would be considered a for-profit type of operation. So I'm wondering if that perhaps might have some element of the piece in there as well. I know that a number of museums could certainly probably benefit from a program like this, unfortunately, but I don't think that the current layout permits that in terms of access. Thank you, Joanne. Appreciate the question. Absolutely. You are very welcome, Jacqueline. And thank you again for bringing that question forward. Okay. So with all this being said, I think fundamentally the fact is that, TIANS supports the Seasonal Tourist Business Designation program. We have had some questions around, is TIANS supportive of this program? If we're moving towards year round, why do we still need this? But even to Anne Marie's comment earlier, we can't just flip a switch and have things happen automatically overnight. And these kinds of programs play a very important role for a large number of our operators to be able to sustainably operate and offer a quality product during their prime season or high season, if you will. And as we continue to work with our partners in government around opportunities such as the seasonal pilot extension program that we've put forth, we do urge our operators that are eligible for the STBD to please apply. Make sure that you get that application in. As Laura noted, September 1st is the deadline. So I always like to say it's actually the end of August, and then we're not potentially missing it by a day. But because the rules are so finite with that, it's really important that that this information get, your application be put in. If you applied or were part of the process last year, it does not automatically extend into this coming year. So it does need to be freshly applied for on an annual basis. And the team at PVSC can provide direction, support, feedback. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them or to us if there's something that we can do from our end at TIANS for you. We are more than happy to assist and support. So on that note, Laura, any other further closing comments from your side of things?
What I'll do is I'll just put up on the screen the contact information again. And I would encourage anyone that is thinking of applying to get that in as soon as you can, just so it's off your list before the September 1st deadline. So thank you very much for your time today and all the great questions.
Oh,
And
one more final question. Final
go ahead.
question. Sure. Jennifer McKean, who has put in here. This may have been covered, but do operators have to state what their closed periods will be or are anticipated to be in their applications?
Correct. There is a piece for the closure time, but it does not have to be consecutive, as mentioned earlier. So it could be, 4 different months or different time periods that add up to 4 months.
Got it. Very helpful. Okay, perfect. That's great. Well, on behalf of TIANS, thank you again, Laura, for sharing the information for this important program. And we're looking forward to supporting the industry as they not only, build their business and take advantage of resources and tools such as the STBD program, but also as we support them to look for ways to grow their season where opportunity exists, and also to help with business strategies and plans that help reflect the new tourism business strategy for the province. So for those people who are looking for additional information, we would encourage you to simply jump on the TIANS website, and you can, on our top banner, you can link right into the strategic plan for tourism and take a look at those various pillars and start thinking about the different ways that you and your communities can also play a role in advancing some of those 6 pillars to help us grow the industry and continue to be a meaningful economic and community driver of support and growth. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm going to say have a great rest of your morning, and we look forward to seeing you all and supporting you all over the coming months. Thank you again, Laura. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye now.